Have you ever had the whole story of your life change overnight? Mine did. And all it took was one sentence from my grandfather's mouth at the Thanksgiving table. My name's Declan Voss, I'm 22. For the longest time, I thought life had just dealt me a tough hand. You know the story, student loans stacking higher than I could ever pay off, endless shifts at the campus coffee shop, sneakers patched with tape, and cheap instant noodles as my go-to meal. I didn't really resent it. Honestly, I figured that was just how life worked, and my parents were doing their best. I never expected anyone to make things easier for me. Pay attention here, because in one dinner, all of that turned upside down. In one moment, with one sentence from my grandpa, everything I thought I understood about my family shattered. Thanksgiving has always been a bit of a circus in our family. My mom's side is loud, dramatic, and allergic to minding their own business. But this year, it was my dad's side hosting, which usually meant things stayed calmer, more polite. Grandpa Albert always carved the turkey like it was a ritual, and Grandma Edith passed around her famous cornbread while pretending not to notice my cousin sneaking extra helpings. It was normal. I was home from college for the weekend, already dreading the midterms waiting for me when I got back. I remember sitting next to my little cousin Jonah, who was too distracted by his mashed potatoes to talk much. My parents, Roland and Miriam, were across the table chatting with Uncle Harold and Aunt Beatrice like everything was fine, like they hadn't ignored most of my texts that semester. We were halfway through dinner when Grandpa Albert raised his glass in a toast, something he only did when he was in a particularly sentimental mood. "To family," he said, voice shaky but warm. "And to seeing our kids grow into something we can be proud of." People murmured their agreements, clinked glasses. Then he looked right at me and said it. "And Declan, glad to see you're putting the college fund to good use." That was the moment that still makes me sick to my stomach when I think about it. All my ties with my family would start to take a different direction here. Everything around me paused. Forks froze midair. My heart thudded once, then again faster. I blinked. What fund? That's when I saw it. My dad choked on his drink, spluttering into his napkin. My mom's face drained of color so fast it was like someone pulled the plug. My aunt's eyes darted toward them, and even Jonah stopped chewing. Grandpa frowned. "The college fund we set up when you were born. You didn't know?" And then, like a nail driven into the silence, Jonah, sweet, oblivious Jonah, looked up at me and whispered, "Wait, you didn't know?" I didn't say anything. I couldn't. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I turned slowly to my parents, but neither of them met my eyes. My mom picked at her peas like they were suddenly fascinating. My dad reached for his wine glass again. "Declan," Grandpa Albert said, clearly confused. "Hasn't the fund been helping with your tuition? We've been putting money in it for years. Every birthday, every Christmas, even when things got tight." I swallowed hard. "No one ever told me about a fund," I said, quieter than I expected. At that, Grandma Edith's lips parted like she wanted to speak, but didn't know where to start. Aunt Beatrice leaned in slightly, eyebrows raised, her fork resting on her plate. "Wait, so who's been managing it?" That was when things started to unravel. My dad cleared his throat. We didn't think he needed to know," he said, eyes on his plate. "You didn't think I needed to know I had a college fund?" My voice cracked on the word had. "We used it," my mom said quickly, her voice tight. "For the house and bills and emergencies. We thought it was best." Grandpa's face turned from confusion to something else. Something cold. "What do you mean you used it?" My dad shot him a look, then turned to me. "Declan, we were struggling. The recession hit hard. The roof was leaking. And your brother needed braces." "My brother?" I snapped, cutting him off. "The one who didn't even go to college?" "It was all for the family," my mom said, her voice rising. "You wouldn't understand. You were just a kid. You wouldn't remember how bad it got." I stood up. My chair screeched against the floor. Every eye at the table was on me. You could have told me. You let me take out loans. You let me work 20 hours a week on top of classes. I thought we just didn't have the money. I thought I was doing the right thing, working hard, not asking for help. And the whole time you were sitting on my college fund. It wasn't like that, my dad said, but he didn't sound convinced. You're making this a scene. I laughed bitter, sharp. Oh, I'm making a scene. You lied to me for years and I'm the problem. Grandpa turned to them, his voice quiet but firm. That money was never meant for you too. It was Declan's. We made that clear. Well, maybe if you hadn't insisted on putting it in our names, my mom began, but she stopped when she saw the look on Grandpa's face. Because we trusted you, he said. Because we thought you'd do right by your son. The table was dead silent. My cousins looked anywhere but at me. Even Jonah kept his head down now. My aunt looked uncomfortable and my uncle slowly leaned back in his chair, lips pressed tight. I sat back down, not because I wanted to stay, but because my legs were shaking. How much was in it? I asked, looking at Grandpa Albert. He hesitated. About 40,000 by the time you turned 18. Probably more. We kept adding to it. 40,000. 40,000. That could have wiped out every loan I had. Covered books, housing, maybe even let me breathe for once. I stared at my parents. My mom looked like she might cry, but I didn't care. My dad looked angry, but not ashamed. Just cornered. We did what we had to do, he muttered. No, I said, my voice low. You did what was convenient for you. Grandma Edith finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk about this, all of us. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was already pulling out my phone, my fingers moving almost on instinct, not to make a scene, not to post some angry rant, just to pull up something I'd been sitting on for a while, something I'd kept buried, figuring it wasn't worth sharing until now. And as I opened the document I'd been holding on to for months, the one with every cent I'd scraped together, every scholarship I'd fought for, and a little bonus I'd gotten from the startup I'd interned at over the summer, I saw my dad glance at the screen and freeze. He knew what it was, or at least what it meant. But I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not yet. Because the truth, that was just the beginning. That document I had pulled up, it wasn't just numbers. It was a breakdown of everything I had scraped together since I turned 18, scholarships, stipends, wages from the campus coffee shop, freelance gigs, even the small bonus I got from the startup I'd interned at over the summer. I had been proud of it. I remembered nights in my tiny apartment at 2 a.m., calculating whether I could afford a new pair of shoes or if that money was better spent on groceries. I always chose ramen and duct tape. My parents apparently chose Silas braces, private tutoring, and emergencies that never included me. What they didn't know was that I wasn't just an intern anymore. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, the company had offered me a full-time position after graduation, high salary, signing bonus, stock options. They even told me they were grooming me for leadership within 2 years if I kept up my pace. I had been waiting to tell my parents when I got home. Waiting for the moment they'd finally be proud. Now I wasn't sure I wanted them to know at all. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No calls. No texts. Nothing. The only message I got was from Grandma Edith, thinking of you. Love you. I typed, thanks, I'm okay, then deleted it before sending. I didn't know how to respond. Then the messages started coming. First from my mom, Declan, we should talk. Can we meet before you go back? Then my dad, you're being immature. This is more complicated than you think. Call me. Then, oddly, from Uncle Harold, hey, just want you to know I had no idea about the fun stuff. That's messed up. I'm here if you want to talk. I didn't reply to any of them. Not yet. Instead, I contacted the bank listed on the trust fund documentation that Grandpa Albert had mentioned. It took some digging, a few forwarded emails from Grandma Edith, and one firm but polite phone call with a confused advisor who couldn't believe the beneficiary of a fund had never been told it existed. When they confirmed the fund had been drained over 7 years and every withdrawal was authorized by my parents, I felt sick. There it was. A paper trail. Hard numbers. Names. They hadn't even tried to hide it. I asked if there was anything I could do. The advisor paused, then said, "You'll want to speak to a lawyer. This might fall under misappropriation, especially if the fund was designated specifically for your education." So I did. I made an appointment with a campus legal aid rep. I brought them everything: fund documentation, bank statements, my own financial history, even old birthday emails from Grandpa Albert saying things like, "Added a little something extra for your future." I had brushed those off as sentimental. They weren't. The rep looked at me for a long time and said, "Declan, they might have committed a felony." I didn't want to believe it. These were my parents. They tucked me in. They bought me Legos after my tonsil surgery. They taught me to ride a bike. And now they were people I might have to take to court. That weekend, I went radio silent. No calls, no posts. Just space. But silence only made them louder. On Sunday night, there was a knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, my dad was standing there. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept either. "Can I come in?" he asked. I didn't move. "I just want to talk." Still, I said nothing. "Fine," he sighed. "I'll talk, you listen." He stood awkwardly in the hallway, hands in his coat pockets. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. We thought we'd pay it back. You were young. You wouldn't notice. Then we fell behind, and things got away from us." I stared at him. "You could have told me." "I know," he said quickly. "But your mother thought you'd resent us. She wanted to wait until we could replenish it." "You had 18 years, I said flatly. He flinched. Then he said something that shifted everything. "We didn't just use it on ourselves, Declan. We used it on Silas, too. His school, his surgery. He's always needed more help than you. You've always managed. We thought you could handle it." The anger boiled up in me. So because I was the low-maintenance kid, I got less? He didn't answer. Just looked down at his shoes. "What would you have done if Grandpa hadn't said anything?" I asked. "Kept lying? Let me drown in debt?" He looked up, and for the first time in years, I thought I saw real regret. "I don't know." There it was, the most honest thing he'd said in years. I nodded slowly, then stepped back and closed the door. No yelling, no drama. Just quiet. But something in me snapped into place after that. I wasn't just going to move on. I couldn't. They made their choice. Now it was my turn. The next few days were heavy with silence. My phone lit up with messages I didn't answer. My mom's texts came first: "Declan, please, we can explain." Then my dad's: "This is not as black and white as you think." I ignored them both. Then one night, a blocked number rang. I don't usually answer those, but something told me I should. It was my mom. Her voice cracked through the receiver. "Declan, please don't do this." "Well, pay it back." "Well, figure it out. You don't have to ruin everything." Her voice broke on the word ruin. I asked quietly, "How much did you take?" She hesitated. We didn't keep track. It was over the years." "The bank did," I said flatly. Silence. Then she whispered, "We didn't think it would matter this much. You got scholarships. You're doing fine." That word again. Fine. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I stayed calm. "I've been eating canned soup for 3 years, Mom. I've walked miles in the rain because I couldn't afford a bus pass. You left me to figure it out while pretending nothing existed. And you want me to be grateful I managed? We were trying to help the family, she said softly. No, I said. You were trying to survive. And you chose who mattered more. Click. I hung up. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until I saw the cursor blinking on my screen again. Over the next week, word spread. I don't know how, but someone told Grandpa Albert. Maybe it was Aunt Beatrice. Maybe Jonah overheard something. I don't know. But that Sunday, I got a call from him. Declan, he said, voice low and steady. Can we meet for coffee? Just you and me. I agreed. We met at a quiet diner near my campus. He was already there, stirring his black coffee like it held answers. When he looked up at me, he didn't smile. I'm sorry, he said. You didn't do anything, I replied. No, he said firmly. But I trusted people who did. I should have checked. I should have made sure. I sat down slowly. I looked into the trust, he continued. It's gone. Every cent. And I've already spoken to the bank. They're cooperating. If you want to pursue charges, well, you have every right. I stayed quiet. He added, when your dad asked me to set the fund in his and your mother's name, he said it was for convenience. That it would be safer that way. I believed him. His eyes were full of something I hadn't seen before. Shame. I should have known better, he whispered. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I said, they kept it a secret for over a decade. The only reason I know is because you slipped. He nodded slowly. Then he reached into his coat pocket and placed an envelope on the table. I can't undo what they did. But this is yours. I stared at it, didn't touch it. It's not enough to cover everything, he said. But it's a start. And I want you to know I'm changing my will. Everything I leave behind will go into a separate trust, only for you. No one else touches it. Not again. I looked at him. Really looked. And I believed him. When I finally opened the envelope that night, it was a cashier's check for $10,000. I should have felt relief. Instead, all I felt was anger. Because $10,000 meant someone believed in me and my own parents never did. The next day, I filed a formal complaint with the bank's legal department. Then I started planning something I never thought I'd do. Christmas was coming. And for the first time in my life, I dreaded it. Christmas came fast. Too fast. And for the first time in my life, I dreaded going home. Not in the joking, ugh, can't wait for Aunt Beatrice's casserole kind of way, but in the bone-deep sense of walking into enemy territory. I didn't pack much, just a single overnight bag. No gifts, no cards, nothing wrapped in cheerful paper or tied with a bow. I wasn't in the mood for pretending. I had already told Grandpa Albert I'd be coming. He didn't try to talk me out of it, just asked, "You sure you're ready?" I was. Not because I had forgiven anything, but because some things needed to be said face to face. The air was sharp and cold when I pulled into the driveway. Snow clung to the edges of the lawn, and the house looked exactly the same, warm, glowing, festive. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was the perfect family home. But I did know better. The moment I stepped inside, I was greeted by the smell of cinnamon and roasted meat. Christmas music played softly in the background. My mom, Miriam, was in the kitchen, laughing too loudly with Aunt Beatrice. My dad, Roland, sat on the couch with a drink, chatting with Uncle Harold as if nothing had happened. Both froze when they saw me. My mom's face stiffened. My dad didn't even stand. I nodded, hung my coat, and walked straight to the dining room where the rest of the family was gathered. Grandpa Albert was already there. He gave me a small nod. Beside him sat Grandma Edith, who hadn't looked me in the eye since Thanksgiving. At the far end, my brother Silas scrolled through his phone, not acknowledging me at all. Dinner was served. It was tense. Everyone acted like they were walking on ice, trying not to be the first one to slip. Conversation stayed surface level: weather, traffic, work. No one mentioned the trust. No one mentioned the complaint I had filed. They probably thought I wouldn't go through with it. That I'd cool off. That I'd be the good kid again. But I wasn't here to be good. I was here for closure. The moment came after dessert. My dad stood up with his glass, delivering his usual Christmas toast. We're just so proud of how far our kids have come. Even in tough times, we've always stuck together. That was the spark. I stood up before he could sit down. You've always stuck together, I repeated. Right. Except when it came to honesty. Except when it came to me. Silence. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder neatly printed, bound, labeled. I set it on the table. That's the full breakdown. The trust fund you drained. Every withdrawal, every date, every cent, cross-referenced with my student loan statements. Just in case anyone here still thinks I'm overreacting. My mom's face crumpled. My dad's jaw tightened. I looked at Grandpa Albert. You asked me if I was ready, I said. I am. Then I turned to the rest of the table. I worked 3 jobs through college. I skipped meals. I missed out on experiences because I thought we didn't have money. I blamed myself. I thought I was unlucky. Meanwhile, my parents were quietly spending the fund my grandparents created for my future on themselves. My brother Silas looked up. It wasn't all on them, he said. Some of it was for me. Yeah, I said, locking eyes with him. Braces. Tutoring. A new laptop every year while I was duct taping mine. Grandma Edith spoke, her voice trembling. We didn't know, Declan. We're so sorry. I nodded once. I believe you. But this isn't just about money. It's about respect. Trust. Choices. I turned back to my parents. You could have told me the truth at any point. Even after the fund was gone. But you didn't. You let me believe we were all struggling together, when really you just let me struggle alone. My mom whispered, we thought we were doing what was best. For who? I asked. For me, or for the version of me who never asked questions? They didn't answer. I took a breath. I filed a formal complaint with the bank. Legal proceedings are in motion. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because actions have consequences. And because I'm done carrying this burden alone. My dad stood slowly. You're suing us? Your own parents? No, I said. I'm holding you accountable. He scoffed. You'd really tear this family apart over some money? No, I said. You did that the moment you decided I didn't matter as much. I picked up the folder and walked to the living room. Everyone stayed frozen at the table. I set a final envelope on the mantel. I won't be staying tonight. I don't know if he'll come back. That envelope has copies of the documents and a letter. So no one can say they didn't know. My mom was crying. My dad stared at the wall. Grandpa Albert stood, walked over, and hugged me. You don't have to do this alone, he whispered. I nodded. I know. Thank you. Then I walked out into the snow-covered night. No one followed me. A week later, I got a letter from the bank. The investigation had officially begun. If fraud or misappropriation could be proven and all signs pointed that way, my parents could be forced to repay the full amount or face civil penalties. I didn't celebrate. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a reckoning. But I did one thing. I used the cashier's check Grandpa Albert had given me. Paid down part of my student loans. Opened a new account in my name only. No shared access. No hidden hands. By spring, I graduated with honors. 2 months later, I got my first paycheck from the startup, now my full-time job. I moved into a new apartment. Bought myself a decent pair of shoes. No duct tape. As for my parents, I don't know. We haven't spoken since Christmas. Maybe we never will. But sometimes I catch myself thinking back to that night. To the way Grandpa Albert lifted his glass at Thanksgiving and said, "Glad you're putting the college fund to good use." The way everything cracked open from there. And I realize it wasn't losing the money that hurt the most. It was losing the belief. The belief that the people who were supposed to protect me didn't. But am still standing. And for the first time, I know exactly what I'm worth. Not because of a trust fund. But because I stopped trusting the wrong people. And started trusting myself. But I ask you. If those who are supposed to protect you steal from you. If those who are supposed to believe in you leave you alone. Are they still family? I made my decision. I stopped trusting them. And I started trusting myself. Now I wonder. Would you do what I did? Would you tell the truth to their faces in front of everyone? Or would you keep quiet and carry the secret inside you and move on?